Hello everyone, I'm Drew Goldfarb and welcome to the debut edition of Betting for the Cycle, where we're giving you 4 picks for upcoming baseball games, matchups, or prop bets, and trying to go 4 for 4 to bet for the cycle. Quick breakdown of how this works. I'm going to pose 4 potential wagers. Our experts and I will each give you our picks as well as how confident we are in the outcome. The least confident pick will be our single, most confident pick will be a home run. We'll each have a pick that we consider to be a home run, a triple, a double, and a single every week, giving us a chance at betting for the cycle. See how that works. This week, I'm joined by Taylor Smith and Jim Beviglia. Guys, our first bet this week is a baseball game that is happening tonight. Tampa Bay Rays are in second place in the AL East, and they're hosting the 4th place in the AL East, Toronto Blue Jays. May seem lopsided for a pick'em game, but it actually features a solid pitching duel. So my question for you is, in a daily fantasy play, which of these pitchers are you taking for tonight? Trent Thornton for the Blue Jays or Blake Snell for the Rays? Jim, start with you. How confident are you and what's your pick?
My pick is going to be a Blake Snell, and I'm going with a triple to start us off. I think if this was a question of value, you'd have to think about it because I think Trent Thornton's on a nice little streak here for Toronto, and I think Blake Snell runs into some decent right-handed bats for the Toronto Blue Jays, but you're talking about a Cy Young Award winner, Blake Snell, going up against a guy who's kind of an up-and-comer, a Rays team in first place or second place, and the Jays kind of towards the bottom of the standings. So I think you have to go with Snell just based on performance. And like I said, I'm pretty confident on that one, so I'm going with the triple.
Taylor, what about you?
I'm going to actually make this my home run. That's going to be Blake Snell, 36.5% K rate on the season. He's actually lowered his walk rate to 7%. The Toronto lineup has just a 128 collective isolated slugging against lefties, and they struck out 24.5% of the time. And he gets to face them in the favorable home setting of Tropicana Field. Thornton, I'm not sure if his 26% strikeout rate is legit. He never had higher than a 24% K rate in the minors. That was at high A when he was in the Astros organization. Tampa's a lineup that profiles better in general against righties. Most of their better hitters are lefties, so it's pretty lopsided, I think. Snell over Thornton. It's, definitely a question of value once you start getting into the price tags, but if you're taking a straight up pick, I think it's definitely Snell.
And I'm agreeing with you. This is my home run pick. I'm going to go with Snell. Last 24 and a third innings pitched, 1.48 ERA, 37 strikeouts. So he's 1.5 Ks per inning. Only 6 walks over that stretch as well. That's destined for some big points. I think that the value might be there for Thornton if you're in a salary cap situation, but Snell, as far as a head-to-head, is the way that I would go on that one as well. So let's move to question 2. We go to a series pick. The Red Sox and Yankees this weekend in the Bronx. 4 games set, so a possibility of a split here. Red Sox have not been nearly as good of a team this year as expected, at least so far in the standings, but they're still over 500. They've been hot of late. These teams usually step things up for this rivalry. Will the Yankees win the weekend series outright? That means at least 3 wins out of 4 games, or 2 out of 3 if there's a rainout. Taylor, you're up first here.
I'm going to make this my single. This seems like kind of a toss-up. The fact that it's in New York kind of evens the playing field, I think. The Yankees are in first place, which is amazing considering how many injuries they've had to deal with. Sanchez, Judge, Stanton, Gregorius, Andujar, Severino, Betances, Montgomery, Tulowitzki, and Paxton are all either hurt now or have been hurt, yet they're still in first place. I think Boston, they're healthier. Overall, I think they're just better right now, but I do think the fact that it's a 4-game set in New York kind of tips the scales a little bit more in New York's favor. It's my single. I think it'll be a split. I think the Red Sox will get the Sale game, and I think they'll get the David Price game, but the other 2 are kind of more unpredictable. So I'm not super confident in this. I think it's going to be my single in a split.
I'm making this my double. I'm going for the Red Sox or split side of things. Going through, the Yankees have been 18-7 in May. Red Sox are 16-9. So it's not like they were that much worse. It's just that very beginning of the season that has Boston that much lower in the standings. Although, and again, these numbers are prior to Wednesday's games. I was going through the matchups in the rotation. Yeah, there's only really one game that jumps out to me for the Yankees as being probably a lock for a win, and that's Domingo Germán going. I believe that's the Friday game. Sale and Happ, if you're looking at win-loss, you would be confused into thinking that J.A. Happ was having the better season, but he's not. So yeah, I think that this is most likely to be a split, assuming they play all four. I think there was some weather in the forecast headed towards New York City. But if they do play all four, I would say this is a split. I got to pick the Red Sox side otherwise. And like I said, I'm making this one my double for the pick. Jim, what are you doing?
Yeah, I'm going with this one as my double as well, and I'm going with the Red Sox to win the series. Taylor talked about the Yankees, how they have been able to overcome these injuries with a lot of guys who weren't even on their radar at the start of the season. I mean, guys like Giovanni Urshela and Clint Frazier. I mean, these guys weren't even supposed to be on the roster. My question is, in the pressure of the series, even though they're at home, the pressure of a big series against the Red Sox, the defending world champions, where they have all these guys who have been there before, are these guys going to be able to step up? Even Domingo Germán to an extent. I'm not so certain that he's, knockout winner of that game. Eduardo Rodriguez won again and has pitched a little better late. So I just think in kind of the big atmosphere of Yankee Stadium and this big series, these Red Sox guys that have been there before. If I could bet on a rainout, I probably would, being in the Northeast. I know how it's been lately. But I'm going to go, like I said, with the Red Sox to win the series as a double.
All right, pick number 3. It's a matchup of two of the worst teams in baseball. Miami Marlins and San Francisco Giants will have combined for just 40 wins in a combined 107 games by the time the teams square off in their series finale Thursday afternoon. Pitching matchup features Drew Pomeranz taking on Sandy Alcantara. Pick here is which team will win Thursday's series finale. I'm up first, and as we were talking about before we started recording, if it was a matchup of the pitchers, going against Drew Pomeranz is the easy choice. But for me, I'm making this my single. And the reason for that is because I'm picking the Marlins to win, especially with Pomeranz being on the mound for San Francisco to start. But they're the Marlins, and it's one of those things where if they were a better team this year, or even 5-10 games better, and not just on a crazy hot streak winning 8 of 11, I would lock them in. This would be the home run, easy pick, move on to the next. But they have not been good outside of the last 11 games, so I have to just assume that at some point it's going to end. The Giants and the Marlins are still basically on level footing when it comes to the overall standings. Last outing for each pitcher, 5 runs allowed. Pomeranz in way fewer innings, but that's just the way things go. So I'm picking the Marlins. I think they're going to win. If they were 4 or 5 games better in the standings, I'd lock this in much higher, but I'm making it my base hit for this one because they're the Marlins, and this is a game of two of the worst teams in the league. Taylor, which way are you going?
I don't have much faith in picking the Giants to win anything, but I'm going to go with San Francisco here, and it's going to be my double. Drew Pomeranz has not been good at all, but his 4.67 xFIP shows that his 6.45 ERA has been a little bit unlucky. The Marlins don't have a ton of strikeouts in the lineup against lefties, but they do have the lowest team weighted on base average, 261 against left-handed pitching in the entire league. And Marlins Park is actually a more favorable pitcher's park than Oracle Park, so it's a positive park shift for Pomeranz, which is a tongue twister. Sandy Alcantara is the worst pitcher on the Marlins staff. His 4.5 ERA is not horrible, but his 5.13 xFIP is actually worse than Pomeranz. The Giants definitely don't have an imposing lineup either, but given the pitching matchup, I think it slightly favors the Giants, so I'm going to take San Francisco as my double.
Jim, round us out. Which deciding factor? Because I got the Marlins, Taylor's got the Giants. Who are you taking, and how confident are you?
Well, we're all over the map here because not only am I taking the Marlins, I'm making it my homer. You guys come up with some great stats, but I saw Drew Pomeranz pitch earlier this year, and it just didn't seem like he had any kind of weapons to get right-handed hitters out or any kind of hitters out. And Alcantara had a bad start last time, but he has come up with some really nice starts as well. The Giants offense, one of the weaker in the leagues. There's just not a lot of guys that you're afraid of in that lineup. So I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to take the Marlins as my homer pick to win this game. And even though they are the Marlins, that's the way I'm going.
All right, well, we will see on that one. Last one to complete the cycle. Let's go back to daily fantasy. Big pitching matchup on the West Coast. The New York Mets taking on the Los Angeles Dodgers. Noah Syndergaard going for the Mets. Walker Buehler on the mound for LA. In daily fantasy play, which of these pitchers are you taking for tonight? Who will have the better performance? Taylor, you get to start us off here.
I think this one's pretty easy. This is my triple. I'm going with Walker Buehler over Noah Syndergaard. I don't know what's going on with Syndergaard. His underlying numbers look fine. His strikeouts are fine. He doesn't walk anyone. But he's always allowed a high BABIP. His career BABIP allowed is 316, which is well above average. This season it's 330, which makes me think he just throws his pitches right over the plate and lets people hit them. The Dodgers have one of the best offenses in the league, loaded with left-handed power. They're fourth in the league in weighted on base against righties, and their 59 homers against righties is 10th. Buehler hasn't been quite as good this year as he was last year, but he's allowed 1 earned run in 3 straight starts. He's facing this watered-down version of the Mets without Cano, Nimmo, Cespedes, Lowry, McNeil, etc. There's just not a lot to be afraid of in that lineup. So just based on the matchup, the Dodgers have a great offense. The Mets do not. I think Buehler over Syndergaard is the good call, though. Good call, so I'm going to go with the triple there.
Jim, what are you doing?
Well, Drew, I'm going to go with Walker Buehler, but I'm only going to go with him as a single. I feel the same way that Taylor felt about Syndergaard. It seems like he can't miss bats when it counts. He especially has trouble when there are runners on base. A lot of hits falling in, and some of that might be luck, or some of it might just be him not locating his pitches the way he wants to. Buehler's been pretty solid for the Dodgers, and the other thing is that, Syndergaard going against that Mets lineup, against the Dodgers lineup with all those left-handed hitters, Peterson and, of course, Bellinger and Muncy and Seager. I mean, there's just nowhere to run in that lineup for a right-handed pitcher. I think lefties fare a little bit better against them. You saw Steven Matz pitch well against them last night. But a righty going against the Dodgers. Syndergaard has the capability, obviously, of coming up with a big game. That's why I'm only going with this as a single confidence pick, but I'm going to go with Walker Buehler in the single.
All right. Well, for me, I'm going to end up going with Buehler as well. Just make it unanimous here. This is my triple. I am very confident that this is going to be the end result on this. His last 19 innings pitched, 2 earned runs allowed, 20 strikeouts, just 2 walks. That K to walk ratio is a big stat booster, point getter for you in daily fantasy. Syndergaard had even come out and said it's a mental thing for him. Whatever it is that isn't working, he's got something going on where he's just has that mental block. So we will see what the result is for that. We are all unanimously going with Buehler, and just like with Taylor, I'm making that my triple. So before we wrap things up, we're going to close out by locking in a pick to make it to the World Series. Each week, we'll have the option to back out and change our pick, locking in whatever odds are posted at that time. The odds we're using come from my bookie. Right now, I'm locking in a matchup of the Philadelphia Phillies at plus 420 to win the NL and the Boston Red Sox at plus 550 to win the AL. I think each team offers value right now compared to the likes of the Dodgers, Yankees, and Astros, who are also teams I would have considered wagering on if the odds were a little bit better. Jim, what teams do you want to lock in here as your AL champion and NL champion picks?
I'm going with a couple of those obvious picks. I'm going with the Yankees, and I'm going with the Dodgers at plus 350. I just think the Dodgers are so deep, and I think once the Yankees get healthy, they're very.
Taylor, who do you want to take for the World Series?
I'm just going the chalk path. Astros plus 290, Dodgers plus 350. I think they're clearly the 2 best teams in the league. They have depth on the hitting side, on the pitching side. The experience is something that matters a little bit. So it's lame. I know the Astros are kind of banged up right now, and it's not exactly going out on a limb, but Astros-Dodgers 2017 rematch.
See, I would agree with you guys on a lot of those things, but I think that the odds are going to be similar later on in the year. So while I can still lock in Boston and Philly, that's why I chose to go with them, because their odds are so much further. The odds that I was mentioning are just to win the pennants. It's doubled to win the World Series. So you're at nearly plus 800 or so for the Phillies and plus 1,000 or so for the Red Sox to win the World Series. And for me at this point, I'd rather lock those in now, knowing that I could still get those 2-1 odds to win the pennant later on in the year for any of those other teams, for the Yankees, Dodgers, or Astros. Those are definitely some good picks. We will see week to week if any of us want to back out, change, lock in some new odds that may be available at that time. And we will also see what our stats are week to week, as we will be keeping those here to see who can hit for the cycle, who can have the most home runs, triples, doubles, leaders, if you will, and batting average and all this great stuff. We're going to see that coming in future weeks. But for right now, that'll do it for this week's edition of Betting for the Cycle. Be sure to check out next week's edition, where we'll show you the stats of how we did and give you our latest picks. For Jim Beviglia and Taylor Smith, I'm Drew Goldfarb. Thanks for watching. See you next time.